The first DAF 95 XFs were imported to Russia 10 years ago, on June 1, 1997. The car began to sell well after modernization and changing the index to DAF XF95 in October 2002. But the conveyor life of the 95th is nearing completion. The flagship of the Dutch company with the index 95 XF, XF stands for Extra Forte, replaced the 95 family, produced from 1987 to 1997. It turned out to be so good that an authoritative jury of the best journalists from leading specialized publications awarded it the title Truck of the Year 1998, Truck of the Year 1998. Despite the abundance of modifications, the main tractor, designed to deliver goods over long and extra long distances, has become the most massive and popular in Europe and in Russia. According to experts, its fuel efficiency has been improved by 4% compared to its predecessor, and the Super Space Cab began to take first place in the capacity evaluation tests. In addition to the Dutch, who bought this car more often than other brands out of a sense of patriotism, the Germans, Belgians, Spaniards, Italians, and other Europeans were able to appreciate it. And this despite the fact that in a number of countries there are commercial vehicles of their own production, made with the latest technology. But progress, it turns out, is not always good. In modern analogs of the 95th, there are a lot of electronics that monitor, among other things, fuel injection. And the quality of fuel sometimes leaves much to be desired. For Russia, for example, this has become the talk of the town. So an important competitive advantage of the DAF XF95 for domestic carriers is the ability to operate a truck even when refueling with low-quality fuel. Actually, the Dutch car was specially developed with an eye to work in Eastern Europe, or rather, to operate when refueling with high sulfur content, in adverse road and climatic conditions and in the absence of a developed network of professional service stations. In practice, this means that if the driver of another truck contacts the service due to malfunctions or failures of the fuel system, the driver of the Dutch car continues driving. By the way, for the suitability of the DAF for repairs on its own, truckers call it among themselves the Dutch MAZ. Agree, not every truck can be repaired by even an experienced driver on the highway, but DAF can. What is the difference between 95 XF and XF95? Outwardly, it is easy to distinguish between them. The first version on the cab on the right had the full designation 95 XF. The second version had only the letter index XF, but on the left. The radiator grille of the firstborn was straight, while the newcomer had it beveled to the bottom. The side deflectors of the old man had an elongated shape. They are shortened in the successor, but due to the optimal aerodynamic shape they are more efficient. Not only door handles, but also side windows do not get dirty. The headlights have changed, they have become narrower. An additional opening appeared in the plastic facing of the headlight to improve the airflow of the lower stage. But there are, of course, many more differences. First of all, this is a completely new chassis. Modernized Euro 3 engines began to be installed on it instead of the previous Euro 2. The maximum torque increased by 50 Nm, which was especially appreciated by carriers operating equipment in mountainous areas. A 16-speed ZF servoshift manual was standard, and for an additional fee, you could choose an electronically controlled 12 or 16-speed ZF AS-tronic transmission. This innovation appealed to those who appreciate comfort and care about extending the engine life. Drum brakes have given way to ventilated disc brakes front and rear, making the process of slowing down and stopping the road train more efficient. And the dual-circuit brake system EBS, electronic brake system, with a pneumatic actuator has acquired the function of automatic clearance adjustment. The interior of the cabin has also been noticeably improved. Along with the new instrument panel, manufacturers began to use better finishing materials. On the first cars that came to Russia, a standard fuel tank with a volume of 560 liters was installed. This was not enough for our open spaces. Additionally, a 350-liter tank was attached to the left. But even this was not enough, and then they began to mount a 550-liter container under the truck with pumping with compressed air. No old-fashioned way, canisters, buckets, was welcome. However, such a supply of fuel is good only on domestic flights, and only 200 liters were allowed to be imported into Poland. What was the need for such innovation? In order to get to your destination and back on your own, proven fuel, and not refuel on the road with who knows what. The big advantage of the XF95 is the air conditioning. DAF is also well thought out from the point of view of organizing the internal space. 95th has a large sleeping shelf 90 centimeters wide, made entirely, and not separately. An orthopedic mattress is provided for it, which takes the form of a back during a trucker's rest. The upper sleeping bag is a little narrower, but it also allows you to relieve fatigue. The top shelf has been shortened by 15 centimeters, which allows you to hang outerwear on 2 hooks on the passenger side. Under the lower berth is a refrigerator, linen, and toolboxes. There is plenty of space for the things of 2 drivers and their luggage. Some Russian carriers install microwave ovens in lockable boxes, by the way, supplied by DAF trucks. Taking sausages and, for example, porridge out of the refrigerator, you can cook a light breakfast in the microwave oven in just a couple of minutes. This is more convenient than carrying a gas stove with you and cooking somewhere on the side of the road. The only drawback of the cabin, in my opinion, is the high casing of the engine compartment. Truckers who have been driving XF95 for more than 1 year say they are used to it. But their colleagues working for the Renault Magnum with a completely flat floor could argue that in other European tractors, the casing does not divide the cab so clearly into driver and passenger areas. Such a constructive solution does not affect comfort while driving, and during rest, the presence of a hump in the center of the cabin has to be considered. Like every car, the DAF XF95 has advantages and disadvantages, and we will talk about the most noticeable of them. The bumper on all modifications was painted in the color of the cab. This is a fundamental decision of the manufacturer. Therefore, when used vehicle dealers say that the color of the bumper is different from the color of the cabin because it was freshened from stone chips and insect marks, this is not always true. Most likely, in such cases, we are talking about replacing the bumper as a result of an accident or damage under other circumstances. In any case, the XF is not the CF, which could have had its bumper unpainted from the factory. The flagship standard colors were first yellow and orange, now white. Other colors were offered at an additional cost. By the way, among the Busheks, the sunny colors of the cabins are dominant. Glass is easy to wipe, although it is quite high. From the front panel, called the tongue by truckers, 2 steps extend, and there are 3 handles at the bottom edge of the glass that you can hold onto securely. If a person's height is 165 centimeters or more, he will reach any corner of the windshield. If lower, then you need to use the mother-in-law's tongue, a brush with a long handle. In warm weather, when a lot of insects break on the glass while driving, it is ineffective to fight pollution with the help of wipers. It is recommended to carry a soapy solution with you and remove greasy traces manually. First soak the dirt, then wash them. Otherwise, the driver will spoil his eyesight and, in a sense, take risks due to a worsened view. Glass must be protected, because in Russian conditions it is enough for a maximum of 2 years. And if dirt is dealt with inaccurately, it is possible that its service life will be reduced by several months. There were cases when negligent drivers managed to bring the glass to a matte state in 2 or 3 flights. The water cooling pump remains operational for almost the entire life of the car, at least up to 1 million kilometers, provided that the antifreeze is replaced in a timely manner. Antifreeze must be of high quality, otherwise the seals and bearings quickly fail. They were too lazy to fill in the antifreeze and fought for good visibility by simply turning on the wipers. For year-round use, wipers should be changed at least twice a year. After the cold season, when sand, dirt, and chemicals fly on the glass, it is imperative to install new brushes, otherwise it will not be a ride, but a continuous torment. The sun visor of the cabins is effective when the sun rises to its zenith, and at dawn and at sunset, an adjustable blind comes to the aid of the driver's eyes. However, it is not enough. In this case, you need good sunglasses. Good means light, comfortable, not cutting the head and not blocking peripheral vision. They must have 100% UV protection and retain color reproduction. In this sense, smoky, brownish and bluish glasses are good. Green, yellow, red are the worst options for truckers. The best ones are with polarized glasses. They are produced for countries with a bright sun and an abundance of snow. Such glasses increase the contrast of colors, making them more juicy, while maintaining color reproduction and do not cause pain during prolonged use. Cabin air suspension does not withstand prolonged exposure to oscillatory loads and capitulates earlier than on vehicles operating in Europe. Problems with the front traverse and pneumatic elements may occur after 2 years of operation or after a run of 250,000 kilometers. You can get rid of an unpleasant, annoying, and tiring knock using a repair kit. But this measure is temporary and can save a maximum of a year. Then you will have to change the entire air suspension. However, In the fleets, they learned to strengthen the front traverse and at least save a little on original spare parts. Headlight washers have a positive effect on the operation of lighting if they work properly. In the 1990s, there were few special fluids for windshield washer in our country, and whoever could was poured into the tank: industrial alcohol, shampoo solution, and even vodka. The tank is, in fact, on the street, and therefore it quickly froze. Attempts to wrap it with a heater did not give any result, as the hoses that supply water to the wiper nozzles began to freeze. Drivers who worked in Europe stocked up on imported drugs and thus found a way out of a difficult situation. By the way, the owners of transport companies did not allocate money for this, and drivers had to cut out the necessary amounts from travel allowances or from their hard-earned money. With the advent of special concentrated detergent compositions in the retail network in Russia, the problem was solved for those who were engaged in domestic transportation of goods. Now the washers remain operational even in severe frosts. Fog lights are equipped with heat-resistant glasses that can withstand decent temperature changes. For example, they do not burst when treated with water from the cabin. But if the included headlights start to be cleaned with snow, they can burst. To avoid trouble, experienced drivers recommend cleaning the glass with the headlights off when the headlights are cold. To do this, it is enough to turn them off shortly before stopping, or even better, let them cool for 3 to 4 minutes. Due to the large amount of abrasive, sand, stones, dirt, the fog glass becomes cloudy and loses its light transmission capacity after 1.5 to 2 years of year-round operation. Brake pads take care of 450 to 470,000 kilometers. And this despite the fact that the parachute braking function, when only the brakes of the semi-trailer are activated, and not the tractor, like Scania and Volvo, are not available on the DAF XF95. However, there are cases when the use of non-original parts led to the fact that the brake disc quickly wore out, and the pads thinned too slowly. It is important to monitor the uniform wear of the pads. And then after all, it happens like this: 1 block works, and 3 rest. There is no need to talk about any savings in this case. In addition, you need to remember that in Europe there are shakers, stands of instrumental control, on which such flaws appear like on a litmus test. The French and Germans are especially zealous in matters of checking foreign cars. If something does not meet the norm, you can't get off with the fine. The car will be driven to the service for troubleshooting and billed for a tidy sum. Sometimes it can be a bill for 7,000 to 8,000 euros. Until you pay, you will stay. If the car is with perishable cargo, it can be delivered to the border or a certain settlement, but in any case it will cost money. Brake discs work up to 450,000 kilometers if the pads were original. The installation of foreign pads often leads to uneven wear of the disc, followed by turning. Often, accelerated wear is caused by a lack of synchronization between the braking system of the tractor and the semi-trailer. For example, the semi-trailer picks up very late or not efficiently enough, and the entire load falls on the tractor. To avoid such problems, the road train must be calibrated on the brake stand, setting the correct pressure, clearances, and the same load on each axle. Another problem is driving through puddles. When water gets on a hot disc, it warps, cracks, and loses some of its original working properties. The rubber of European manufacturers nurses 350 to 400,000 kilometers on international flights and up to 250,000 kilometers on domestic flights. It is important to keep the correct pressure. For example, 7.5 bar under load for the front wheels and 8 bar for the rear. An attempt by some carriers to save money by installing Chinese tires on used cars was unsuccessful. The tires quickly wore out because they had too much soot content. In Russian operating conditions, it is customary to change filters more often than the period set by the plant. For example, oil is thrown out after 45 to 70,000 kilometers, and fuel almost twice as often, after every 25 to 30,000 kilometers traveled. The air and moisture filters are changed at the next seasonal service. The engine sump begins to cry after about 600,000 kilometers. This is a characteristic feature of various modifications of the XF95. Oil leaks appear from under the mounting bolts. There is only one method of treatment: to change the gasket, and best of all not on your own, but at a company service, where they can compress it with the necessary effort. The water cooling pump fails prematurely only due to illiterate operation. The carrier pours antifreeze that is not recommended with good lubricating properties, but is cheaper, and as a result, the bearing breaks and the pump seals are deformed. In winter, Not all drivers comply with the antifreeze density set by the manufacturer. As a result, the liquid freezes, crystallizes and, when starting a cold engine, turns the impeller on the shaft. Batteries. Unlike European tractors running on batteries with an electrolyte density of 1.25, cars with batteries with an electrolyte density of 1.27 are delivered to Russia. For a long service life, the battery must be spared. But there are drivers who save diesel fuel in parking lots and use the TV, microwave, heater when the engine is off. As a result, the battery is completely discharged, and then the driver is surprised how this battery failed, not having served even 2 years. Sometimes, incorrect charging of the battery, for example with a strong start charging current, leads to the failure of the onboard control units. Circuit breakers. Car equipment is expensive, so you need to approach any operations on the car with your head. Even replacing a fuse is a serious matter. If the manufacturer provides that such a circuit is protected by a 5A fuse, then in no case should it be set to 10A. And some Kulibins manage to use a wire, although a real fuse is inexpensive and you need to have it in stock. Frame. To work on international transportation, Russian transport workers often order not only DAF XF95 tractors themselves, but also road trains, preferring German-made Schmitz & Co. gel semi-trailers. If the transport company needs cars with the maximum volume of fuel tanks, 950 liters on the left and 450 liters on the right, then the car is delivered with a reinforced frame. Strengthening consists in the increased thickness of the profile. The chassis of the DAF XF95 is quite simple and reliable. With proper care and timely maintenance on a new car, you will not know grief for the first 600 to 650,000 kilometers. On cars with mileage, no one will name specific suspension service periods, since it is not known how correct the speedometer readings are, how and where the car was operated. The clutch does not forgive negligent attitude, including overload and a foot on a partially depressed pedal, a bad habit typical of those who switch to a foreign car from domestic cars. It quickly capitulates to illiteracy associated with the desire to quickly leave on its own when stuck in mud or snow. Even if there are no bullies, and the clutch basket turned blue, this is a sure sign of its inevitable resignation. When replacing the disc, the entire assembly changes completely: basket, support, and release bearing. Stove. To facilitate starting the engine in cold weather, the first Dutch tractors were equipped with wet stoves, liquid preheaters. After starting the engine, the fuel passed through the serpentine line as if through a kind of boiler and then heated up in the tank. Now there are autonomous preheaters with the function of heating the tank. Such cars, for example, work in Tyumen, Chelyabinsk, Perm and do not know problems with starting the engine in the cold season.